I would first like to invite our moderator on stage who will talk about decoding the new HR mandate, what does it really mean, and also talk about what we are really going to set in context in this subject. So let me invite on stage our moderator first, Mr. Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman Hono, Managing Director, the Exco Group, and CEO Talavi to please join us. Let's bring in some energy and invite our speakers by putting our hands together. So over to you first, and then I'll invite our speakers as well.
Thank you so much. I'll come back to you. Thanks. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Just as there's a saying, men are men, CEOs are CEOs. So there's a lot of stuff we've been doing at the design stage in terms of having the first session always from the CEO desk. Because what it really does is, it does give a little bit of an awakening call and puts some of those myths and realities into perspective. So that's exactly what we do. And I'm sure we're going to build on some of the points that Harit said. But, he was as candid, though it was a keynote speaking kind of a session that was given, but it was more like a fireside. So the kind of shift that he did was remarkable. And thanks for those, nice words at the keynote. I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff that really came out in the first session. But just going to build on some of those points, and I've got a fantastic lineup of colleagues who are going to join me on stage here. So we're going to try and do justice, but 55 minutes is not going to be really good enough. But nevertheless, we'll try and do enough justice to at least 5 or 6 discussion threads, if not all. So the first one that I wanted to say was, amongst the numerous trends that we're seeing is transformation, some of the stuff that's really coming together, and we've weaved this into the earlier conclaves as well. So one is talent, technology, and transformation, really the triad that's coming together. That's theme number one. Number two is, I think, a lot of convergence around workplace, worker, and the entire aspect of work. I think the stuff that's coming together, the worker, workplace aspect is the second construct to the entire talk. The third one is, of course, leveraging new tools and technology in this world of AI. There's a lot, but this is not a tech session. So we're going to use this constructively in terms of how it's enabling, how it's really bringing life together and some of those stuff. But I think the objective is not to go really deep down into tech. There are other topics, or there are other sessions that will possibly cover that. That's the other stuff that we will try and talk about or touch upon in this particular area, just to bring a lot of business value. The rise of employee experience. I think, conventionally we've been talking about employee engagement, but the aspects of employee experience and the difference between employee experience and the employee engagement part of it, what's the nuance as far as experience is concerned, what's the construct, what's the architecture, how does it really deliver good value, and we'll try and bring some aspects of technology also into this through one of the panel member. The embracing DEIB, the entire DEIB practice, which was actually in the last 5 years more at a periphery level, has gone deep. In that particular session, we're going to try and touch upon, some aspects of neurodiversity and cognitives and stuff like that, which is the changing trend. By no means want to preach that DEIB story is complete, but, from this forum, just want to hear at a high level, what does it really mean? I think that's the other stuff. And finally, having said all of this and, using or dovetailing from what the CEO session was, how do we deliver not just business value, but social value as well? That's the construct, right? So how do we bring business value and social value together and put this entire stuff together? And that's the entire aspect of how the convergence between the what and the how of how we run the function. So the business fluidity along with the flexibility of how we run our function, and we must pat our back in terms of how we've actually evolved in the last few years, but the challenge continues. Please join me, and I'll hand it over back to Priya to welcome the other co-panelists on stage and give them a real good welcome, because this is going to be a fascinating session. Hopefully, I'll try and bring out the best out of them, and we'll deliver some kind of takeaways for you guys. Thank you so much. Be with us. Time permitting, we'll definitely want to take at least 2 or 3 questions, but hopefully we want to deliver a good, impactful session. Back to you, Priya.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rajesh, for setting the context as to what we look forward to in this panel. And now I'd like to invite our panelists on stage. Please put your hands together as I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Shaji Mathew, Chief Human Resources Officer, Infosys Limited. Warm welcome to you, sir. Also inviting Dr. Raul Villamarin Rodriguez, Vice President, Woxin University. May I also please invite Mr. Suneet Sinha, Partner and Head, Human Capital Advisory Solutions, KPMG. Warm welcome to you, sir. Also extending a warm welcome to Ms. Rajkamal Vempati, Head HR, Axis Bank Limited. Warm welcome, and over to our moderator and all our panelists to take this forward, and we're really looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, fascinating panel. I must also talk about the design of this particular panel. It was important that we really mash up the entire views, not just from an industry perspective, but it's important to bring the consulting part of it so that you get a multi-client view, and that's why Suneet is here. It was also important, you know, when we're dealing with multi-generational workforce, also get to know the minds of the younger aspirational student community which is going to enter the workforce, and how disruptive they can be in their thought process and how are they thinking. We may be talking a lot of stuff here in this particular forum and how, you know, we think of what it's got to be, but, you know, what are they thinking? Are we in tune with the expected aspirations of, you know, going down even to the student level? And that's the reason Dr. Raul is here, and you know, the views of how academia is thinking about the industry is also important. Shaji, proven leader, I think very important to have a business leader get into this function. Having been a line function leader, he's going to think and act and talk differently. I mean, it will be lovely to, you know, get the conduit between what the CEO spoke and how Shaji sees this world, sees this function. And specifically, and Raj also a practicing CXO who clearly sees day-to-day challenges of how this is all about and really brings the entire board and the management aspirations vis-a-vis what the world of today, particularly the talent of today, is expecting. The blend is phenomenal. If I were to put one point which came out very strongly in the previous talk session between Sanjay and the keynote speaker was how do we really get the sweet spot of top-down talking to a bottom-up listening? I think it's a very empathetic sweet spot. How do we really get there? I think it's going to be crucial. I'm going to start with, you know, Shaji. Shaji, I think the first question is straight away to you, and let's jump into this topic. How is HR evolving as a perfect business partner in this kind of an evolving space and to deliver business value? And if at all you want to touch upon, I think you can touch upon social part of that as well. But I know it's going to be challenging in our 1.5, 2 minutes of your talk time. But nevertheless, I think let's start with delivering business value of this function. And coming from a line leader who has moved to this, it'll be credible. Over to you, Shaji.
Thanks, Rajesh. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here in this 14th CII HR Conclave. So in the last 2 years, one of the biggest transformations that I have seen in HR is HR getting much more closer to the business. We are typically called as a business enabler function. Now the new mantra that I have is HR as a business function. So how do you bring this extra edge to HR, bringing HR much more closer to business? Now this can mean multiple things for different people. For me, I would broadly classify this into 2. One, all of us HR are there, we are great in our content as a HR professional. What if we can add that extra bit of business knowledge into each one of us as an HR professional? And that can add tremendous value. And I've seen this in action. what we are doing in our organization, as an example, is we are taking different parts of the HR, of the business of business to all our HR people. It could be about how do you actually deliver value to our client. It could be about how does the finance function work. It could be about how does the marketing function work. All of those, right? By teaching our people on the business of business, the conversation changes completely. Now the HR team comes and tells me that they find a lot of a newfound interest in the conversations. My business leaders come and tell me there is something different about your people now. They are talking a very different language now, so they're able to add a lot more value. So that's one part of it, and this is really by the business leaders of each of the segment telling the HR team the business of the business. The second part is looking at some of the metric that matter to the organization. It could be revenue, it could be margin, it could be anything that is important to the organization. And there are several things that we can do, even sometimes simple examples. So again, I just give one simple example here. We run large projects, large programs. There is always RFP responses that we have to give, proposals for the client in a competitive scenario. And most of it in a service industry means there is people involved in it. There could be people transfer. We are taking over from various other companies across geographies. Typically in the past, HR is asked to get some information about this entire people transfer business. It was more of a reactive one. Now we have made this as front and center of entire business proposal process. We have got a function which we call Business of People Center of Excellence, where people from different parts of HR coming together who are really enabled in this, they are now able to bring a very consistent solution across proposals, across geographies, across service lines. They interact with the client CXOs. When they come to our campuses, they are the ones who are dealing with the clients. Therefore, we are directly able to contribute to the success of some of the largest of the RFPs that is there. So that's one way of HR directly participating in the success of the organization and in the revenues. And there are several examples. In the interest of time, I will not get into those. So I think it's really about a mindset change also in HR community.
Thanks, Shaji. I think you see that breath of fresh air, when Shaji was speaking in the last couple of minutes. I think there was 80% business talk and 20% in terms of the how as far as the function delivery is concerned. So that's a huge shift, and thanks, Shaji. So Shaji, one objective question. I don't want you to really go long on this. So is HR a station or a destination for you in this entire trajectory? Are you getting back to the line, or is it here to stay? And you can choose to not say as well.
We will talk that in the evening.
I am sure. So all of you staying back in the evening, you can build on this conversation with Shaji. But that's an interesting shift. And thanks, Shaji, for really setting the tone for some interesting conversation. I'm going to move to you, Sunit. This workplace flexibility, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience will back me on this, has been killed to death. I mean, people are hammering it at all points of time. And maybe there's nothing right or wrong about it, because every person, whether he's a CEO or an associate at the last level, every person's expectation is very different. And every organization has been designing it, looking at it differently. There's a cultural element which is coming into play. There are those biases which I'll possibly try and address in the DEIB session. There are many, many things that's coming together. And the reason why I ask you this is the industry has possibly responded. I don't want to judge whether it's responded well or not, but you can see all of that getting trolled on the social media. So you look at a lot of clients from different lenses. Of course, I know the sensitivity. We don't want to divulge. You don't need to get into any of those client shoes. But how do you see this really spanning out? Can you put some sense for us? Can you actually give us some kind of a trajectory as to where this is headed, and what's the client world talking about all of this? Because it's important to demystify this as we go along in the next 2 days, because it's going to come again and again.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks, Rajesh. Yeah, I guess workplace flexibility uh, in the keynote, I think Harit Nagpal also touched upon it a little bit, and he talked about his own perspective on it. It has different realities. I think at one point of time, I do remember there were newspaper headlines. This was back in 2020 when there were organizations which felt like, it's remote is going to be the way to go, etc. Now, I guess it's tough to deal in absolutes on a topic like this. And since you asked me, and that's the reason I'm here to give multi-client perspective, and I just want to assure the audience I don't have any PowerPoint slides. It's only me and my thoughts. Here's the thing. It is industry dependent, yes, because there were organizations which never moved to any type of remote working either. Even in the deep pandemic. I mean, Raj is sitting here. I think banking was one of them. All essential services, healthcare, pharmaceuticals were another. Manufacturing plants kept functioning in some capacity or the other. So I guess it's not about remote work, hybrid work, work from home. I think that the operative word is flexibility, Rajesh. And as humans, we all like choices, don't we? Show of hands, who doesn't like choices? Anyone who doesn't like a choice? I guess that's an easy one. So I think it's about choices. I'll share some data points. And this was in my previous role when I was doing the CHRO role. We tracked 4 years data. We actually asked people how many times do they come into office. And this was when it was post-pandemic, we were in this hybrid mode. And we looked at data globally. We also then did it at some clients, and it was interesting. And again, assuming 5-day work week, the people with the least engagement scores were people who were never coming to office or were coming all 5 days. Least engaged people. 5 days or no days. The people who seemed to be the most engaged, and there was some correlation we did with work performance as well, who had choice and were coming in 2 or 3 days. So there's something there in the data. And this was cross-generation, cross-levels, cross-geography. So I think it's a human, it's as humans we want choice. So I think I'll just settle it over there without being too prescriptive or pedantic, that I think people want choices, and I don't think organizations have a choice. Now I understand there could be mandates you could give, but I don't think those mandates work anymore. And I would not say that it's just the Gen Z or the millennials. I see a lot of people who, I'm a Gen X, who also want that choice. And I guess, just since I majored in history in university, I want to give it a historical perspective. Humans have been around for a while. It's only the last 200 years that there was something called an office or a factory that we started going to. So you can't beat human evolution. Where we wanted choice, we wanted more flexibility, and I think, maybe thanks to the pandemic, that flexibility has come back.
Right. I think just to follow on, and I think it's fascinating to hear from Sunit, because Sunit has got a unique distinction of having done internal HR. That means he's been a CHRO, plus he's in a client-facing role today. So he does consulting with other clients. So he sees the perspective very differently. But the question is, this is definitely the biggest paradox as far as HR is concerned. Workplace flexibility is the biggest paradox. There's a huge disconnect between what boardrooms talk about and what management rooms think about it and the way they want to do it. Again, I'm not getting there who is right or wrong. That's not the point. The point is not that. It's a contentious issue. Yeah? So the limited stuff, and I'm actually, Sunit, you hold your stuff. I'm not going to come back to you. Twist this to roll. Because it's important to know how the students in the current generation and the prospects are looking at it, much beyond the way we are looking at it from an industry lens. Roll, over to you.
All right, thank you, Rogers. A bit of context, so you know from what perspective I'll come. I'm not Indian, you may have figured that out from my name. I am from a country that likes football, Spain. Our university, though it's in India, is composed of 40% of the students international and the faculty as well, which means the expectation of the stakeholders, parents, students, and of course the corporates, it's very different. Now, problems we have, and as I warned you, Rajesh, before coming up, I'm going to have to get a bit dirty. We have a big problem with the concept of placements. Big, big, big problem. is quite polluting in itself. We have a generation, as it is, we do test all the students on 7 psychological models. They're entitled, quite insensitive, unethical work practices of the likes, taking shortcuts, very prone for it. They somewhere become, for some reason, social justice warriors. They think they can change the world, climate change, blah, blah, blah. Not true. But all of them have one thing in common. They all ask for purpose. They want to have a meaning of why they do what they do, why they exist. The biggest problem that we have is not at the university, it's at the school system. And then the byproduct comes to us. And when they come to us, the only answer we really give them to crack a job or their dream career, whatever that may mean, is if you have to do something, just do something. Just move. Being on standby, on paralysis by analysis will not help you. So move forward, whatever that may be. Wrong, right, doesn't matter. We all fail in life. What's important from the industry perspective? Let me give you an Indian fact. IIT Delhi only has 55% of placements, by the way. IIT Delhi is a brand in India for many years. So that's the situation currently in the market. India needs more entrepreneurs, not more employees. However, if you would like to hire, the skills that you should really look for, and that's what we are really working on, though it's not so simple as it sounds, number one is resilience. This global citizen of the likes, which is not just knowing a foreign language or have traveled abroad or having a foreign passport or being an OCI or Indian diaspora. It's about really being able to merge with the environment, in whichever that may be. The second one, which is very critical and is linked to purpose, where I think all of you will relate, is the psychology of self. Unfortunately, in the country, psychology, sociology, anthropology are seen as weak areas. Let me tell you, HR is human resources. It's organizational behavior, which is part of psychology. It's part of cognitive psychology. I will know I'm a psychologist. It comes from there. We have ignored it. Altogether removed from the equation. I've heard a lot of consumer behavior talk in the previous sessions. That's also psychology. And the students are not taught that, neither in engineering, architecture, law, or of course business schools, which are, I think, the biggest hypocrites of the lot. We have one as well, by the way. So that's where it comes from. Let me tell you, this generation knows better than you and me technology, how to adapt very quickly to these technological changes, and how to utilize it for the betterment. So do not prevent those technological changes from removals of functions or removals of certain tasks. It's bound to happen. It's an industrial revolution. Suck it in, adapt to it, and grow through it. That is what is going to happen. We train our students on how to use generative AI in exams. At least write proper English to begin with, without grammatical mistakes, at least. We know you're going to cheat anyway. So at least improve your cognitive capabilities how to fight against a technological system, which is a data collection system. And before I hand back over to Rajesh, I know this topic will come over and over in certain occasions. Not everything needs optimization. We need human reliance as well. And not everything is AI. I don't know for what fancy people call everything AI. There is big data, which is what you have today, which is there for the last 20 years. Then there is AI, which is used very rarely. And then there is quantum computing, which you have never seen in your life. And you'll probably never see in the last 20 years. So this is the reality of technology, which our students understand. But industry, as you know very well, AI is everything. Startups particularly. If they have AI, they get money. So I hope that gives you a holistic glimpse of it.
Raul, thanks a ton. I think you brought in a great balance. I think within the limited time, I think you've given multiple perspectives and you've only increased the pain of dichotomy the way we are at the industry level and how this set of new bunch of millennial plus is going to look at it. So that puts us in a, in a spot of how we can visualize and take this function to the next level. We've got to be more disruptive, I would imagine. Raj, I'm going to turn to you. Yeah. And going to track 3, which is employee experience. Employee experience is the new priority. What does it really mean, Raj? How different is it from employee engagement? And your quick insights on the changing perspective of employee experience, and what is that you're doing at Axis Bank?
So let me just step back. See employee experience, and even before employee experience comes, see conversation on HR. And when we entered the room, we kind of talked about HR's view is, and we heard many, many things, and this is something that we've been hearing over many years. Today also you heard that HR is more than Rangoli competitions or samosa parties. That first itself is something that we need to kind of understand and perhaps not go back and kind of revisit, are we relevant, are we a business function, are we an enabler, are we whatever. We are relevant, that's why we are sitting in this room. Period. Nobody's talking about, obviously there's conversation on the CMOs are dying breed because the same function is getting fragmented, etc. We don't hear that. Why are we self-flagellating? The reason we are self-flagellating is because I completely agree with Raul. We've not upped our skills. We are anthropologists in the organizational context. We are data scientists in the organizational context. Things have moved digitally. We haven't. We haven't upped our skills. We don't understand to seek patterns via data. And coming to employee experience, and employee engagement is something that's easy. We say do once a year surveys, look at some satisfaction scores and say, okay, that is employee engagement. And employee engagement is a misnomer. It assumes that somebody else's job is to engage the employee. Please understand, when we talk about the generation that is coming here, you need to be trusting of them. You need to also say that through technology, there is a complex ecosystem that's been created. It's not just a linear physical space kind of view that you have. So employee experience is relevant because through multiple platforms that you reach out to the employee through the life cycle to deliver the outcomes that the role demands, the mandate of the organization, how is it getting delivered, whether through manager, technology, nudges, the experience that you have with your teams, the operating engine, all of that counts. I feel that employee experience is the means to driving the HR outcomes, period. And if you look at the outcome related stuff, it's very tangible, like your HR is chief productivity officers. HR members are also accountable for, let's say the broader ones, attrition and so on and so forth. But they're also accountable for the social indicators like wellness, well-being, all of that. And I'll tell you, the reason employee experience is so critical, we are managing a universe of paradoxes. Disciplined, optimized execution to innovation. That's in HR's domain. We are managing the need for choice and flexibility to saying, tell me one thing to do. Not having those choices. Employees come in and saying, just tell me what needs to be done. You are managing a world of attention deficit employees, completely attention deficit, but living a world where they're doing 3-4 things at the same time. And in organizations, they're expected to do multiple things again, and they struggle. So you need to understand the persona of the employee, and we've done that time and again. Sunit talked about flexibility. I completely agree. In Axis Bank, we were very fuddy-duddy prior to 2019. We've moved to a place where we've said we have all kinds of formats. We have essential workers 5 days a week because customer doesn't have any flexibility. Customer actually is 24/7 with digital. We have a format with non-customer facing, we have hybrid. We have a percentage who is remote. And we also have a percentage who is freelancers. Believe you me, for me, the choice that we've extended, it's a moat to not only attrition and all of that, but the outcomes are so much better, both in terms of promotion and performance matrices. So you've got to see how you can coexist with all these factors. The difference between employee engagement and employee experience, I think employee experience is the means to the larger end. And I think in all of this, you need to figure out one other important factor. If you're not managing or monitoring employee NPS or advocacy, I think advocacy is the new currency of how people feel in the organization. It's not just satisfaction and all of pride, etc., but look at the employee NPS factors as well. And in the employee experience journey, look at the transactional matrices, your complaint matrices. There is also this entire thing of rise of the chronic complainers. And when I deep dived it, they're not, complaining chronic, they're just not chronic complaints. They said, we are just interacting with the system, right? So look at those transactional matrices as well and understand the experience that you're giving. Understand the personas of the people who are with you. So that's why it's critical to be an anthropologist. Persona is not equal to just saying, oh, 25-year-old working from some pin code, come here. But you've got to understand the psyche of the person. And also, and I can go on and on, but drive your learning journeys accordingly, your onboarding journeys accordingly, and it has to be what they experience when they are doing on, transacting on Amazon and Swiggy's. Unfortunately, we are not configured. And the reality is, let's also admit, the reality is the workplace is your mobile. How have you configured and brought the organization to life on the mobile, not just for transactions, for reimbursements, etc., but can they do, say, the conversations with customers through nudges that are coming on mobile, or they have to go to the laptop and open it. You've got to be leading those conversations and understand that it is a complex world that we are leading to, but fundamentally, human resources functions responsibility is to bring the human back in a digital age. People are starved for that. Have those conversations, but be very, very literate and proficient on data, technology, anthropology, understanding patterns. Bring it to life. Those organizations will thrive and survive.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks for really demystifying employee experience in a very short time that was given to you. But I have a follow-on, and I want you to be a little objective. Maybe a 30-second view is good enough. In such a changing and a dynamic world of employee experience, how quickly are you able to recalibrate, design, and do the interventions? Because if the cycle time is long enough, that's going to not hold out as well. I'm sure you're doing it. But what's the quickest, 30-second bit on how do you do this?
See, design on technology will always take longer. But design on experience, if you're doing some offline measures or managerial interventions or some other things, you'll be able to do it. But please, I think one of the things that I have learned is, though I like my numbers and data, etc., learn to deal within cohorts, which is a cohort which is impactful. And then, like, if you're looking at, let's say, let me give you an example of a frontline staff who comes into the organization. There's enough and more bandwidth that all of us spend in terms of making the person productive. But say, let's divide the entire segment to the first month experience. And just look at first month experience and drive the entire team around enabling the first month experience and removing the stoppers. It is possible. We've done that over. It's a 2 to 3 month period. It's not fast enough. I'm talking about in a scale organization. But my learnings have been, look at segments, look at the digital understanding, and actually glean data. Look at data and be a little bit paranoid about what you're not seeing, both the transaction and the output matrices. And work, here is where, work with business. There's no way that you can deliver this by being a functional silo. You've
So
got
do
to work
you fail in this endeavor as well, repeatedly?
Lots of times we fail. But I find that in the partnerships that you do, even if you fail, there's a collective learning, you become better the next time.
Right. I think I'm just reminded of a story which happened about 15 years, maybe more. It was the first rattle up to my interviewing techniques. Yeah, I would have interviewed over 1,000 people in my life, maybe more. But here was a candidate who was a perfect fit to a role. And towards the end of it, he wanted a feedback as to how he's done. So I did tell him, you look like a good fit. Everything is like, fitting in, classical competency mapping in my head. It ticks all the boxes. But the guy wouldn't leave, So I almost gave him a nod saying that, we're on with it. We'll make an offer. But the guy wasn't satisfied and he wouldn't get up. Even when I, put my hand ahead to thank him and I said, lovely, expecting you to be on board. But he said, no, he just wouldn't leave. He had a follow-on question. And the question was as simple as this, which I struggled. And I must confess this today. And the question was, I've understood what the work will give me, but can you describe what experience will I get out of this role? And I struggled big time. Even having come from the line, I struggled. And that was an eye-opener. I don't think I could sleep that night because it was a real toss-up of somebody having really disrupted you to think differently. So experience was right
So Rajesh,
there. Yeah.
so when we put our tagline Axis Bank, they'll say open. One of the researchers, when we were doing customer research, and it just stayed with me. So some customer of ours said, "Beta ji, vyapar sabhi kar sakte hain. Vyavhar thode log hi karte hain." And for me, vyavhar is the employee experience, the cultural, the purpose-led conversations that you do. So.
Awesome, awesome. That's a good summary to, a profound topic as employee experience. Thanks, Raj, for bringing all those points together. I'm moving back to you, Shaji. And the question is, we heard the CEO talk about, but I'm sure every boardroom, every CEO, every chairman of the board would have a view on the HR function, right? So what's the leadership view on HR? You can bring in customer insights as well because, you come from the line. And can we have, what's working in HR and how do they see it? I mean, let me put it in simple terms. How are they seeing it and what are some of the words that they would use to describe us as a function?
Yeah, so I think, when the board looks at it, they look at it in two horizons. One is the now and here, and the second is from a future perspective. When we're talking about the now and here, it's about how can HR help in bringing speed, innovation, agility, all of that into the business, right? In an industry like ours, which is into services, human beings are really the asset. So everything to do with people becomes an important topic in the board as well. Business cycles change. How fast are you able to bring talent? That's a big part of the discussions. Especially in the last year or two, we have seen with all these socioeconomic challenges, there's a big business cycle that we are into. So therefore, the work that we do to be flexible enough to get the people on time and all that is a big part of the business. The second part is also the technology. Again, in our business, being ahead of technology is extremely important because if we are not, we can't be the navigators for our clients. Now, our intent as an organization is to become AI first. So in everything that we do, we go to be AI first. In our workplace, workforce, everything. So when it comes to people, enabling people on technology and making sure that you got the right talent available at the right time, it's extremely critical. Because you can't typically go to the market and get some of the people who has got so many years in, let's say, in generative AI, because that does not exist today. So our ability to reskill, that becomes an extremely important part, and that directly translates to our ability to service our client. So obviously, board looks at it. Board also looks at what is the employee churn and the attrition and satisfaction, all of those, and again, that's a metric that I present every quarter. So this is more from a here and now. Now, but a lot of the conversation that I have with the board is really about what I call future-proofing the organization. When you look at for the next 5 years, 10 years, or even beyond, I use setting the organization for the future. Again, there are multiple things. I'll broadly look at maybe 2 or 3. One part is really about enabling the complete organization on this new technology. So we've got a massive program going on enabling people on AI. So there's an AI aware program, AI builder, AI master. So that's really about different levels of technology depth. Because for us in our business, that's enabling people on technology, and this entire learning becomes extremely critical. Second part is the conversation that happens pretty much every quarter is about leadership development, succession planning. Now there is this, we have a leadership institute that we have set up almost 25 years ago. We have a way of classifying people into various tiers of leaders, which we call constellation leadership. And then, the leadership development plans, the conversation with them, various programs that we do, all of those they track, as well as the entire succession planning. That's a very, very critical aspect as well, not a particular level. Across the depth of the leadership level, we have a pool of leaders that we develop as a potential successors so that the organization is resilient. And the last part, again, a lot of conversation happens is on this entire DEI. how diverse are you, how inclusive are you, how equitable you are. So, we look at all kind of diversity, gender diversity being a very critical one. It is part of our ESG narrative as well. We have given a target, we have a publicly stated target on our gender diversity by 2030. There is a diversity on the gender diversity on leadership. All of this we need to track, as well as tell us what exactly are you doing to get where you want to be. It's not just about the numbers. And then, of course, all kind of diversity, right? Ethnic diversity, geography, economically weaker section, LGBTQI, veterans, all of those. So again, there is a conversation that happens around that too. So it's, to summarize, it's like now and here, speed, innovation, agility. How are you managing your customer expectations? How is HR working towards our customer expectation? And second one is really about future-proofing the organization for the next so many years to come.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Shaji. I think if I were to really get into the conversation, Sanjay, you specifically had with Harith, and particularly he mentioning that, not too many CHROs get into the CEO tracks. Here is the formula of what Shaji said. And let me put it in my words, the way I've understood. I think managing talent has been our forte. I think we all understand as CHROs how to manage talent. I think the part in terms of how we enable technology to deliver transformation and get to a business value is the journey, I think is the way Shaji is saying. But I want to add a little bit of an interesting perspective to this, if I've understood this right. I'm not coming back to you, Shaji, I'm going to Sunit. Sunit, how do you see it from a consulting lens? Just build on this, but if you can keep it brief, you'll be doing us a favor. Because I've got a few more stuff to be pushed through this panel. So as brief as possible,
Brief and candid. So I think what Shaji said resonates with me as well. In fact, I want to pick on something he mentioned earlier that, it's not just a business enabling function, it's actually a business function. And I couldn't agree more. In the way I looked at my CHR role at KPMG, being a professional services consulting firm, was that we're part of the business, we're a business function. However, the truth is multi-layered. If I were to look at my expanse of clients now, public sector, promoter-driven, family-owned businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, large public-listed companies, and I think probably Shaji and Raj represent the pinnacle in terms of where you have that level of board engagement and leadership engagement with HR. It's a mixed bag out there. And just relating a story very quickly, which will give you the message. Recently started some HR transformation work at a promoter-led infra and real estate company. Now we signed up a scope of work, and then he brought me into a room separately, and I'm going to get into vernacular here. Sunit ji, jara side mein baat kare. I said, chaliye. I said, is he going to ask for a discount? I don't know. What's he going to ask for? He says, dekhiye, scope and all to theek hai, but basically, मेरा एक बस simple आपसे expectation है, मेरे HR वालों को tight कीजिए, ये लोग बहुत ढीले हैं. Now, but that is the reality. It is harsh for us to hear it, but the reality is that while talent and people is absolutely top of mind for all these stakeholders, irrespective of what type of organization, which industry, but how they look at the leadership view on HR is very varied. Some people are very engaged. Other people are looking for a unicorn or a purple squirrel. And I can tell you the reason why that happens. I think part of it is HR itself, and part of it is how their work is tough. And I can tell you, after having been a consulting lifer, these 3 years as a CHRO, the one issue that I felt was, it's similar to the challenge that homemakers or domestic managers face. The work is invisible. How often have people in this room been told, business leaders or your colleagues coming to you and say that, oh, HR, busy season, letters coming out, huh? How many people have had that comment? Raise your hand. But it's not seasonal work, it's 24/7. But it's invisible work. And I think somewhere, in the new world, we'll be able to crack that, but I'll talk more about that later. But that was my candid answer. It's varied. And some people say very harsh things about HR.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sunit. I'm put under time pressure now. So Sanjay, with your permission, Manu, with your permission, I'll possibly take about 8 to 10 minutes. I know I'm told 5 minutes. I want to push 2 or 3 tracks very quickly. And if I have your support, it's just a minute of talk time each. So we don't have too much of time, but nevertheless, let me try and get this. And I confess to what you said, Sunit, particularly because in one of my roles I had taken in contribution to EBITDA as one of the KRA, and I'm happy to talk about it later, maybe on sites. How does one deliver? I mean, it was through experience density, role substitution, working through various complex numerical models, but it's doable. So thanks so much, and I think this part is well addressed. I'm going to, the next question is a minute each from you, Raj and Raul, with Raul going first and you following it up. And the question is, we heard a lot about scalable learning. Yeah, so, with all the complexities that you alluded to, Raj, in your question, I need an industry perspective. How do you really build capabilities and how do you really scale? But Raul, I mean, importantly, you are an you come from the world of academics, so you clearly understand capability building, you understand learning agility from the demographic cut. So can you give a little bit of a perspective as to the changing world? And you travel around the world with so many universities all over. What's your view on scalable learning and the industry readiness and the student intake? I put all of this in a minute. I'm sorry about this, but...
It's fine, you're looking for miracles, that's fine. Okay. First and foremost, which no university is really doing fully, all the track programs have to be fully inter-exchange along the way. There's no more engineering or management, or there is no more track per se. You may learn some core skills, but ultimately you need to have all of them. I see a lot of architecture schools not knowing anything about business when they have to actually become a firm. So all these kind of interchangeable skills is what you are talking about, scalable. However, in my honest observation, though I don't think my boss will like that, but master's degrees, programs as it is, will kind of cease to exist. There will be more microcredits or stackable microcredits, stackable courses, short programs, particularly industry professionals, where it's online, hybrid, core skills. Important part is not everyone needs to be trained in everything. So you need to make sure, especially from the employee experience side and the HR side, to train people on what exactly they need and not do a whole package for everyone and just close it. That's the current trend that has to change. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and your money. Good for us, I mean, I'm getting your money, but bad for you. So it's not going to help you. As for the intake, we have serious concerns, primarily because of the mindset. They come to university thinking that we are here to give jobs, and we are not Naukri.com. So we are here to train the process. We are here to train your skills, and maybe, if you're lucky, you get a job. And if you're not lucky, then you do mountain climbing, or you go to the Himalayas, or you become a biker, or you win some medal for India in Los Angeles. That's up to you. But we have to train your skills. Right. However, until all of you guys keep on asking for placements, you're not helping me out. So please, a bit of cooperation, and don't look for just employees for a salary. That's not what they need. They need the skills. Otherwise, you employ them for 6 months, and then you sack them, or they resign, and it's of no use for anybody, and they come crying to us about it. And the parents as well. All of you, I'm sure, most of you are parents.
So, Raul, you've targeted the question of the audience, and Raj is going to respond on behalf of the audience.
Also the industry has to have recognition that not all skills can be trained here or here. It has to be done on the job. So recognizing, when you talk about stackable skills, we recognize that 60% of the skills are only going to be trained through formal means. And in that 60% also, you're talking about scalable learning, you need to be where you are, not your, you're not your curated courses of 8 hours seat time, or those won't work. So be where the person is. So we are experimenting in a big way with drip feed learning every day, give reels, Instagrammable kind of content, huge uplift, and be where they are, which is on WhatsApp or other places. Don't try to get them to the LMS or LXPs that you have. The other area that you need to do scalable is, we're forgetting the poor managers, so supervisors. They also have a role, and their jobs are complex, have become complex. Enable them, help them manage the young force. So tell them also what they need to teach. So that's another one. And third is experiment with different kinds of employees and have different formats of employees, don't have age, et cetera, criteria, and move away from all these, rankings also try to experiment even in your recruitment models.
Thanks, Raj. You're so well organized in your head. I'm glad that you could wrap it up in a minute. You possibly consumed.
You are looking at me like saying, finish it, finish it.
I can't finish this session without going to Shaji on something. And Shaji, again, the challenge is you saw what I did to Raj. So this is exactly the same. Just a minute of talk time. He's done an interesting story, particularly on using AI on employee experience. So I thought it'll be incomplete to wrap this session without getting that out of you, Shaji. So just a minute, headlines, more conversations on the sites with people who will definitely walk up to you. But tell us that story very quickly in a minute.
So Rajesh, I can't look at you when I talk about this, otherwise you won't let me finish this. 1 minute is very difficult, but I will try and summarize it like this. Every human being is unique, and there is a significant role that technology can play, especially AI and generative AI, in hyper-personalizing the experience, the engagement, the learning for every individual. If you take an organization of our size, 300,000 plus people across 50 plus countries, different geographies, it is humanly impossible for HR team to give that personalized experience, right? With technology, what we've been able to do now today is AI acting as assistant, AI acting as advisor, AI acting as a friend, and there are different use cases for each one of those, which really gives that hyper-personalization for across engagement experience. If I take learning as an example, we all talk about how AI can help in the learning. So if a person wants to learn or you want to reskill from, let's say he's a COBOL developer and he wants to become a data scientist, technology can tell you what is the path to take. It can also give you all the required learning content, the assessment, all of that. That's straightforward. But the hyper-personalization comes here. Let's say if I'm a person who likes to learn in a specific way, let us say in a storytelling format. Now, generative AI is able to give you that entire content in a storytelling mode. You could take characters from mythology and really teach you the way you would like to learn. And it could be any of the pedagogical system that you would like to. So that's the level of hyper-personalization that technology is able to give you and help you through that entire journey. And it's a long conversation. We can do it in the evening again.
Thank you, Shaji. You've done a great job. I think it's very tough to get a panel like this and get a conversation done in less than an hour. So I'm definitely unfinished. I'm sure so is the panel. But nevertheless, at least we could get some headline views on a few topics. I would really encourage, as they stay along, you could do some side conversations or get in touch with them later, whatever. But I'm sure they've left a lot of thoughts with each one of us. If I were to just coin one word or one or two words that really brings all of us together in this particular session, it's vulnerability and failures. So I think if we can be open about that, I think none of them really put out saying that, we are all preaching, we are all successful, we know what the story is, we know what the future is. No, we are being as vulnerable as we can be. I think that's what's the message from the panel. And the second one is embrace failure. I think it's fine. I think we know that we don't know all of it, but so long as we dare to do and get into the next stage, we're fine with this. Please put your hands together for this wonderful panel who joined, and I'm sure there are some words of wisdom for you and takeaways. Over to you, Priya. Sorry for rushing this through, but I had just no choice. And Sanjay and Manu and CJK were staring at me and sent out chits as well. So back to you, hopefully in time, and just spilled over 5 minutes.
Thank you. Can we have a louder round of applause for that fantastic conversation? Thank you, Mr. Rajesh, for really weaving that whole conversation for us, and to all our speakers for sharing those very crucial nuggets with us. May I now please invite on stage Mr. Urvashi Singh to please join us and felicitate all our speakers with a memento right there. A round of applause one more time for all our speakers. For our moderator, Mr. Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman Hono, Managing Director, the EXCO Group, and CEO Talavi. I would urge you all to please take the center stage for a photo op. Our panelists, Mr. Shaji Matthew, Chief Human Resources Officer, Infosys Limited. Ms. Rajkamal Vempati, Head HR, Axis Bank Limited. Thank you for sharing those very crucial insights with us. We'd like to thank Dr. Rol Rodrigues, Vice President, Woxen University. We'd also like to thank Mr. Sunit Sinha, Partner and Head, Human Capital Advisory Solutions, KPMG.